On this episode of Cannabis Legalization News, you're going to learn about why national cannabis legalization might be a decade away, according to Forbes magazine, and then we have a list of other news, including what RFK Jr. says about cannabis. There's a new PAC in Washington, D.C. for legalizing cannabis. It's legal in Maryland. It's the second day it's been legal in Maryland, by the way. Congrats, Maryland. More, we have a Name That Strain. You're going to want to stick around for that. We have a 420 somewhere. We're going to talk about Minnesota. We got some stock news. We got some international news, even out of the Ukraine, and a whole bunch more. So let's get into this week's episode of Cannabis Legalization News. What's happening, Miggy?
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on our Cannabis Legalization News podcast. We talk about the industry, and so if you're in it, don't forget to put it on at work or something.
Help
change the world for the better, and you may be working on this for a minute. Did you see that thing out of Forbes this week? It's an opinion piece, but Forbes and Forbes staff is saying that even though recreational marijuana use is now legal in 23 states, including Maryland, most Americans support ending the federal ban. Investors, entrepreneurs, and politicians are no longer high on it happening in the next 10 years. And then you know what they start with?
What's happening?
Ron fucking DeSantis. And so he said, no, I don't think we'll be doing that to decriminalizing cannabis. I don't think we do that, DeSantis said. And then Joe Biden, not exactly pro-cannabis either. So that's the 2024 election. That takes us till 2028. And then what happens?
But even, we talked about this before. No matter, say one day there's a stroke of the pen and no one's going to go to jail no more, there's still going to be the infrastructure. That's going to be another 10, 15 years, just like it did with alcohol. So this article is I put as much as weight in this article as I do any article by Kevin Sabat. You know what I mean? These are opinion junk pieces that is hyperbole. If we can just get it descheduled, right? We talked about this last week, whether it be scheduled, it should be paired with alcohol, goddammit.
Yeah. Did you see what Cookies did over this past week?
No.
They got a new website, thca.cookies.co. And if you go there and you're in an illegal state, you can buy THCA flower cookies direct from the internet. So Cookies Direct, which is just one of those things where the THCA line has been there for 4 years. And 4 years later, they have the balls to be able to say, no, ship it to Kansas.
Yeah, but they're not doing anything new, though. I mean, even when the CBD hype was big, we all remember the scam Canaway, right? There was with a K. It was kind of like a MLM, right, where you had to buy the product and then go sell it, whatever, hustle on your own. None of this is new, but Cookies being the bigger brand does show they're bigger threshold, bigger lawyers, right? How many other CBD stores, Delta 9 stores, Delta 8, hemp derived products are out there? A lot. There's a lot.
Well, it's the definition of hemp, and so it's the whole funny definition of hemp. If you grow the weed correctly, and Cookies grows premium indoor weed, so it's entirely conceivable that you can get a clean COA that says it's legally hemp because it's under the THCA level, but then the THCA is 30%. Well,
again, it's as long as they are controlling the source and all that other stuff, right? Because I couldn't imagine. It might be easier for something like that for international or interstate sourcing to have one grow, but what they're doing with each brand or each state is individual growers, right? It's not like they have one McDonald's, factory where they're making everything. Everything's unique to each state.
Well, not when it's hemp. That's one of the reasons why you can have these online direct. And so you see all these seed companies come up, and now you might just see all these THCA companies come up, but they aren't selling it into Illinois and these other states where they have shops. So if you can't have a shop in that state, you could still put a website up and then sell hemp into that state. Fascinating. Yeah. But what happens if this guy wins? And I know what you're thinking. No, he won't. But that's out of the news. Benzinga's reporting about what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. discussed about cannabis legalization news on the trail this week. He said he would decriminalize marijuana on a federal basis and allow the states to regulate it and tax it, and then the revenue generated would be to build rehab centers across the country and provide drug rehabilitation programs. That is something that the fentanyl crisis has made very necessary, but that doesn't have anything to do with weed. Maybe we should fund the schools.
This guy's just nuts, though, man. I think it's just another weak. They want to take out Biden on their side, and there's a lot of weak people behind that. And that guy, just because he has a Kennedy name, I mean, it's not. The guy's like QAnon vax guy. That's what he is, but like Democrat. Still another.
Well, hang on a second. It gets weirder.
Okay.
Because then he was asked, "What about psychedelics?" Well, definitely decriminalize psychedelics, said Kennedy. And that's it. He's saying that he wants the Safe Banking Act. He wants to tax it federally. He wants rural healing centers all over the country where kids can grow organic food and eat well. And, that's cool. And decriminalize psychedelics. I still think we need to fund the schools.
Right. I mean, that'd be great if the tax money went to that. I was just thinking this morning about like how we do this podcast. We're structuring pretty much like the cannabis industry and the rules that are coming up. Right. But as someone who drinks beer, I never find a need to like tell these people how to do business. That's because the rules, these beer breweries are doing their own business best practices type stuff. But what
about that crap Bud Light stepped into? Talk about not knowing your client. The Bud Light problem that they had with the transgender advertisement. And so would you have guessed that your average Bud Light drinker is kind of a bigot?
Say it's not true.
Come on, Missouri.
I just thought it was the weirdest.
The rest of America.
But for a limited can brand, I just thought that was the funniest backlash. That's just a silly thing. But we're limiting all these pot farmers, all these growers. Everybody has aspirations to say I want to be a farmer when I grow up, but you can only be a farmer in your state. That's all it's going to come to. Right now at this moment, you can only function in one state at a time.
Except for cookies, that is now Cookies Direct, provided that there are no rules in that state and it can just default to hemp. Why can't you have just your TA? Okay, so you just get a license somewhere, and wherever, Oklahoma, for example, something like that, where you can get a license, New Mexico, and then you grow it in such a way that you're able to always pass it as hemp, and then you have a COA with it, and then that inventory doesn't get shipped out at the front where it's marijuana under that license because it's over the line of 0.3. That stuff is marked for online retail, tax-free everywhere. Interesting.
But that's provided, though, that the cannabinoids are not regulated in your state, right? Because here in Washington State, they're starting to, they realize they made an oopsie when they legalized cannabis and then forgot about the ability to change Delta 8 to Delta 9 and then infuse it into the, with hemp. So they're trying here now to make that part of their umbrella. So I'd imagine any outside state mailing might become illegal. But, what about other states who just don't have anything? And then the fun police are just whoa, we're going to make rules against hemp now too. Because there are those states doing that, trying to crack down on the hemp.
There are. And then those states, that's the best thing about legislatures. You can just pass whatever law you want, and if it's unconstitutional, somebody has to sue about it. Take that, legislatures. You're the ones that are making the rules.
If I was in a legal state, could I get it sent to a PO box? Would that be a thing? Or does it get stuck right at because it's still federal as long as the... Well,
then again, if I was advising Cookies on this, and I wasn't, fortunately, I'd be don't forget to use the post office. You have Fourth Amendment protections there.
Exactly.
But, it's one of those deals where I got the same advice that we were giving on this channel 4 years ago. But, nice.
Yeah.
Hey, there's more news. Did you know there's a new political action committee in Washington for cannabis legalization? Yes, that's right. According to thebusinessofcannabis.com, a new committee to work to federally legalize cannabis is coming. It is a super PAC called Legalize America that aims to end the war on drugs. And can't we just have the war on cannabis ended? Because, fentanyl sucks. Let's continue to have that be a Schedule 1 substance.
Yeah, well, the whole fentanyl thing is still crazy because I'm still learning some stories about people who are made millions. Just well, hell, the goddamn what's the family behind the medical? They just settled for
Purdue Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, the family settled that will not be. That's crazy. That's crazy. But this drug cannabis council will be pretty cool. But it's a lot of MSOs. A lot of people are skeptical about the what's the intent.
Well, it's always the MSOs. It's always the money that has the PAC. You see, but I'm glad that we have big cannabis and big weed that's out there advocating for the weed industry. We need that because otherwise the stuff's not going to change. And then once it's out of the bottle, sure, hopefully they can repair their balance sheets and maybe have some hegemony in the industry. But this industry doesn't scale well, and it is highly local, and it's going to be very political.
I don't even think it's like when we talk about the industry. I mean, we talked about this 5 years ago, and it's like, nothing's gonna. I was happy that I don't mind the MSOs, the Walmarts of weed, but
sure,
it's because rich people don't want to go to jail and they want to be able to make more money in.
Well, think if we had a brand that we could hustle on the internet. And so right now we are using collateral base, or I am, it helps, it pays my life, and then after that you could have a cannabis farm and a license and then do this direct to retail business model that Cookies is now doing. And so if you could do a business to consumer model nationwide, that may help a lot of small farms, especially small farms that are artisanal and have the brand and a terroir of Humboldt, which they can slap on the label and mail it out from there,
Yeah, and I think we're losing a lot of craft experiences because of that. There could be, someone in Idaho can have Oregon weed, right? Because we hear all these stories of how there's too much weed in all these legal states, which I really don't think it's a thing. But it's just they can't get rid of it legally enough or fast enough. Is the only issue, right?
Right. Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense, in my opinion.
Yeah. I just think though with the like I said, with Walmart weed, they're the ones that are going to be, and unfortunately in America, it takes money to change the rules. That's all
it absolutely does. That's why the super PAC here. Where is the super PAC from? The industry.
Yeah, and I mean you see this coming. You're like, eventually the only rule that you want to see it come into play would be home grow, right? Or some sort of low man personal use thing. But until then, we need these guys to keep shoveling money in the legislature's pockets so we can try and figure out how to make this intercommerce.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And then they created these limited market states. And I realize that they lost $4 billion last year, but they made a lot more than $4 billion. And so, True Leaf's a good example. It lost $250 million, but it made 1.25. And so it's one of those deals where it's losing on revenue so that it can be the Amazon. It's trying to grow. It's trying to be a growth stock. But then those growth stocks don't work, especially if it's going to be another 10 years of BS.
Well, it's funny. Someone got a comment here. You'll lose good cannabis by supporting big canna. And, the thing is I've been doing this over half my life, over 20 years, and all I want to do is just not go to jail, right? I had a conversation today with a guy who is in the Washington State recreational market. He makes cannagars, but he got arrested 2 years ago in Idaho on his way to an event. Yeah,
where it's super illegal.
We're super
Idaho.
Illegal. And
Fuck.
He got caught with 1.5 pounds of cannabis. I was already in these cigars of his brand, but he's also a patient. So these imaginary borders of rules and where they stop and go, where you can go to jail, just needs to end. And I think the MSOs can help knock that barrier down, and then from there we'll have to structure it so for the people type shit.
That's never how it works. But then it doesn't make any sense that they're going to have this system of highly limited licenses and then they're going to try to create the industry to model what they've been using, right?
But
and price you out of it. But that's will that work? Probably, but not very well. Simply because every state, they're not going to dent New Mexico's market. The states are going to be able to set up their own markets, and then if they have it be too open, their business model doesn't work there. But where it could work?
Where? Oh, Maryland.
Maryland. And Maryland is a limited market state. There is going to be a license lottery in Maryland, and happy Legalization Day yesterday, July 1st, 2023. It is now legal in Maryland. Annapolis, Maryland's the latest state. July 4th, festivities. 100 stores will be able to start selling cannabis legally. They've been having cannabis medical sales in those 100 stores for about the last 5 years.
So they're doing a lottery for the recreational side then, huh?
Yes, this is going to be a social equity incubator opportunity like you haven't seen before, well, you haven't seen it before. I've seen it numerous times. We can help you out on it. Don't forget to head on over to cannabisindustrylawyer.com and fill out our little type form. We'll get in touch with you, especially if you're in Maryland and you want a license. It's social equity, and so it's going to be social equity incubator season this fall. We need to see some regulations still because they ain't none.
Well, and speaking of licenses, we got another 11 days till we find out we won or not, right?
Holy crap, that's right, everybody. Miggy and I have an 8.5% chance, which of course means that it is a 91.5% chance against. It's one of the reasons why I haven't really sunk a lot of time or thought or money into this yet. And next year, we'll just be in an incubator, so our odds are substantially higher, especially if it's the incubator that we made. Nice. Yeah, it's this whole different way to approach the aspect of it, and so we're doing that now in Missouri and in Maryland, and then next year in Illinois again, because Illinois still has 150 dispensaries to hand out before they hit their limit of 500. That'll take a few years.
Speaking of social equity, did you see that news in New York? They just dropped is that one of our stories lined up? I didn't even look at that.
Well, let me just check the show notes. You said New York. We've got forest workers, Green Thumb, TerraSend. No, to talk to us about this New York story that because there's a lot of news. So we didn't have that one up.
Yeah, the governor just released $150 million, and they're partnered with a firm. It's in our chat. $150
million for social equity released in New York, but it's going to the card license holders because New York's interesting in the sense that they said that they're going to give all these licenses to very special people, and then if you were one of those special people, and Maryland's doing it very similar, they're going to give these licenses to very special people, and if you're one of those special people, you may also get a license. But then they promised everything in New York. So they also promised to give you the actual edifice and get open. And that's the difference. Most of the social equity lottery states like that, and it wasn't really a lottery in New York, they have these incubator things that come in and people with knowledge, experience, and capital sponsor social equity applicants.
Well, I find this interesting. So here's the actual release from the governor's office, and let's see if I can
you gonna throw it to the private chat or something? Are you gonna share it? All right.
Boom. So the commitment secures up to $200 million for a fund. My issue here is 150 of this, I believe, is from another a public-private partnership supports development of dispensaries. So they're working with outside money. This Chicago Atlantic Admin. Have you heard of them?
No, I have not.
So it's a real estate company. I looked them up. And,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I just find it weird that the state says this is their money, but it's not. They're actually just partnering with a goddamn somebody that could possibly, how we talked about, set you up for failure. Here's the property, here's everything. Oh, too bad you did bad in business. Now we'll just we'll have to liquidate you. I hope it doesn't turn out that way.
Oh, that's exactly what the incubators are. And so that's the only way for many of them to even become operational, I would say. If they don't have that, they're just going to be out there, waiting. And then, then they're not going to have nothing. But we don't have that. It's 20 past the hour on the East Coast, which means that it is 4:20 somewhere. We're going to take a short commercial break. See you soon.
I'll get mine in an hour.
Oh, yes. This is medicinal, and the office is closed on Sundays. And so, yeah. Anyway, we do have a new blog post about IP cannabis licensing agreements over at collateralbase.com, where we would love to help you out with various things. And this is interesting. If you try to find a cannabis licensing agreement, you will find cookies. It's the one that comes up first, which I think is just a testament out there that everybody is trying to copy what they're doing. But pretty interesting as well. If you want to see an IP licensing agreement, hopefully one day when you Google it, this page will come up. That might take some time, though.
Well, you're pretty locked into CEO. You're doing pretty good.
I know what it is, yes, and so that does help. We have some Florida news. Which
Florida.
Basically what you always say. Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody, a DeSantis ally, wants to stop pot legalization from going before voters in 2024. She's sued the state.
Damn.
And not only did she sue the state, she is also, getting schooled, hopefully by the opponents and eventually the Supreme Court that rules against her. But they are trying to stop the ballot initiative, calling it misleading. Florida has some very interesting rules for their ballot initiatives.
Yeah.
And this is not the first rodeo of the ballot initiative. So they wrote it to directly address the requirements of the ballot initiative, like the single question and single purpose tests or something, I think is what it's called. I'm not a Florida lawyer.
Wow. I mean, this is not surprising. I mean, probably underneath the campaign, right? Like, she's probably doing it in cahoots with like DeSantis.
She's saying that it was misleading. It's not clear, and so like if what you have put as to the ballot initiative is not a single issue and it's not like very clear, then it can be attacked. And so they're attacking it by saying it's misleading and it's confusing and it's ambiguous, and so it does not fulfill the obligations of the law that says it has to be this single purpose. I don't see anywhere in this law from BusinessInsider.com that sets up how the lawsuit is characterized to exploit that single purpose thing in the Florida law. So, not the biggest fan of this.
I mean, it's kind of like South Dakota, right? Where there was like the 2-question thing and you can only do one question at a time bullshit. Like with this one.
Yes, very similar to that kind of thing where it has to be a single subject. Yeah. There it is. And then she kind of one subject clear enough for the voters to understand. And then she is saying it's not a single subject. It's so confusing. I mean, how are the voters going to know that they're going to think it's legal at the federal level? The Florida voters changing Florida law are going to think they're changing federal law?
Right.
I've realized like you have Florida schools, but did you not tell them that there's two types of government, state and federal?
Well, I don't think they know it's 3 branches. So,
I don't know. 3 branches at their federal level.
But I'm
just the states.
It's just crazy to think that, like, I'm just the stall on the whole program there is sad, and the fact that there's so many consumers out there. I really do hope one day that Florida stops them Floridaing. That makes sense.
Yeah, Florida will not stop Floridaing. Florida is more than Florida. Anyway, I should stop trying to turn Florida into a verb. Interestingly enough, though, like he did sign a law earlier that allowed medical cannabis to use telehealth, which is interesting. So he's expanding the medical cannabis reach, but he's making it way more expensive. So like if you win one of these licenses, and there's super licenses in Florida, they're stupid expensive to get. So like, if you want a Florida cannabis license, start with $10 million and then ask your friend for more money. But why would you make that a little bit easier and then say, but you can't have it be completely legal?
Because I imagine True Leaf said, hey, we need an easier way to get
True Leaf is spending... Well, but then True Leaf's saying like, hey, make it legal, and they're spending millions, tens of millions of dollars on legalizing it.
I mean, they're still going to lock in the market as long as they don't have any new grows.
They got the market, they got the capital. Like True Leaf is like the 800-pound gorilla of the South.
Shouldn't
cannabis.
The Florida question just be like, do you want to go to jail for weed or no? I mean, simple enough.
They're just trying to write a ballot initiative that would amend the law that says, yes, the people want adults to be able to have cannabis.
Florida is just so sad. They're like like Idaho. Florida's like the other taint of America. I don't know.
It's because the guy who's running it is not reasonable. He's not a reasonable man. He's an ideologue who's trying to exploit and trigger people with hot buttons or whatever they call them nowadays, so that you can create conflict and attention It doesn't have anything to do with the policy. It has everything to do with upsetting people or making other people say, yeah, you're right. And so he just is trying to tune in to that very, very amygdala-based, like, gut reaction where it's like, or like, fucking right, man.
Well, it's the whole blinders too, man. The whole like, this is where woke goes to die bullshit. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Like, what progression? Like progress? Like the equality? What the hell does it mean? Yeah, it's just so dumb.
But it's creating conflict. It's us versus them, and then as opposed to we're all Americans, and this is the greatest country in the world.
Someone needs to kick him in the pee-pee.
Nobody will. Nobody will. Well, we do have some more federal news.
Yeah,
and then this is some interesting federal news, and of course it's out of the marijuana moment. Shout out to them. Here it is. So, U.S. Forest Service says marijuana legalization drives an uptick in positive THC tests for federal workers as perceptions have shifted dramatically shifted. And that is interesting that the Forest Service, because it is a federal agency, mandates that you cannot smoke weed because it is a federal government job and it is a federal crime to use marijuana.
I mean, that'd be an amazing job, though, if you could, right? Be out in the forest, chasing the birds and smoking a joint.
Hence the uptick, because people who enjoy cannabis very often enjoy plants or nature. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, unfortunate story. I knew years ago when I used to be a traveling tech, I met a girl who was actually busted with an ounce on Yellowstone grounds, which became a federal case for her.
So she did not become a USFS, that's the United States Forest Service employee?
Well, I mean, imagine, there's the time frame where you can say you didn't smoke weed, and that's how I got into the Navy, but yeah, probably not. Most likely. But
well, this is the thing. I mean, it's the read it and weep crap. Like, the Forest Service is a federal agency, and as a result, we are subject to any and all federal regulations that are in place, according to Mr. or Ms. Dixon, who is the secretary of the agency. That means that all of us, as federal employees, are required to remain drug-free and refrain from federally prohibited drug use, whether on or off duty, regardless of state law.
Is it? But like every year, there's a group, whether it be the Forest Service, the FBI, truckers. Right, like it seems to be how the law itself is impeding the employment, for workers.
Well, yeah, but that is at the federal level, and so you have to understand if the politicians are approaching this with, let's not really fix anything, let's just exploit our differences about why we hate the other vote, the Democrats, they hate the Republicans, and the Republicans, they hate the Democrats. Well, that's because they're communists, or that's because they're fascists. Just like dehumanizing, name-calling, labeling crap. If that is the agenda, just exploit that. Why would any of the laws change? They wouldn't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. For when you see labor shortages and issues, and that's essentially just quintessential America, right? Everybody needs a job. Everybody needs to have some sort of purpose or some sort of thing. And then you're telling because of your lifestyle or your choice to medicine, we don't do that for alcohol. We don't do that for cigarettes. We do it for people who fucking cook popcorn in the office. But, we don't do it for any, there's no other thing out there that's being told that you're a bad person and can't go on in life or function because you do this.
Well, there are. And so let's get to our next story on this. And this is an interesting one. And we can come back to I kind of skipped name that strain for right now, but we'll come back to it. We have one. So stick around, by the way. This is coming out of the Bangor Daily News. A accused leader of a Maine medical pot ring claims federal law protects him. That's Lucas Soroy. And so he was allegedly, according to the United States government's indictment against him, running a $13 million operation, and he was purportedly, according to the feds, diverting cannabis and its monies and evading taxes and whatnot. But at all times, there had been no evidentiary hearing to establish that he was operating outside of compliance with the state's medical cannabis program.
Right.
And at all times, the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment is in effect, which says that there is no money to enforce, the federal drug crimes against state law compliant medical cannabis companies. So they never conducted an evidentiary hearing. And I'm like, oh, well, that may violate the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment. And this case, and so that case is from 2016, it is the McIntosh case. And so now they're trying to dismiss this because the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment says there's no money for them to fight this case because there's no evidence that he was not a state law compliant medical operator. Where's the evidence of noncompliance that justifies you having money to fight this?
I mean, really, if you think about it, you think you're fighting the guidance of the state law, so you should be okay. This is an interesting one too, because I don't know if you follow up Smoking with Cats or Poetry with Cats on Instagram. He's an activist in this area. And that's how I saw the story. But it seems to be like, it's so funny how medical is the gateway to recreational law, right? In most states it has been. And for most people, you see like, oh, and in the world doesn't happen. But like, I guess this guy, he's an ex-cop too. And so there's a little like disgruntledness among the community because they're like, oh, now you need the patients to support you and all this other stuff. And I just find it in every state you're going to have this. You're going to have people who are part of the medical scene. You're going to have people who are part of law enforcement. But then you're going to also have the eventual recreational, right? The eventual, like, not everybody's doing it. Everybody can play. It's not a special, you need a little, like, you know, prescription to partake in this thing. I just think every state, it's kind of like a little culture or a petri dish of culture when you watch little things happen like this in different places. I mean, he's justified saying as an activist, you know, like, you know, we need to stand for patients, but I guess this guy wasn't doing the patient thing. It's a weird quandary. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep, but it's going to be interesting because now this motion is pending. The district judge has to rule as to whether or not there was any money for the DEA to be conducting this raid without an evidentiary hearing to determine that they were out of compliance with state law. And so, like the department, the United States Attorney is saying they cannot establish that they were in substantial compliance with Maine law, given the breadth and depth of the conduct. Now, again, that's different. Like the United States, are making an allegation that they were outside of compliance.
Yeah.
The state says they were compliant, and you didn't do an evidentiary hearing to determine whether or not you had money to do this. You just did it. And so they should be like, no, you didn't conduct this correctly in compliance with this provision of the federal budget.
Yeah.
You don't have the money for this. Case dismissed. But we'll see, because like that's what the McIntosh case said. But now this case over in the first will probably be appealed. We'll find out how it comes out in a couple of months. And the interesting thing was the case is with the Parlatore law firm, who used to be Donald Trump's lawyer until he backed out of it. Mm-hmm.
This will be an interesting case too to see because, well, it's also an example of like how long it takes for justice, right? So the fact that he got raided after the Rohrabacher memo, whereas Lance, our friend Lance Glore, who did 7 years,
Right.
They tried to bring that up in the after the initial trial. What's the appeal? Mm-hmm. They tried to bring that up, but because of the time frame of the memo and the raid, they're like, it's not retroactive. But
right.
For this guy, it should be interesting to see. Like, but why is it like?
But I think it's interesting then. Well, I guess, yeah, it's not retroactive. And so, like, it can only be a shield when it's there. And so it wasn't there, but then, okay, so you lost that one. It sucks. Yeah. But now I think that there's this protection. And so there's been a protection in the Ninth Circuit. And so now if there's not a protection in the First Circuit, then you have a split of the circuits, appeal it to the Supreme Court, and let's have them say, you're not allowed to do this.
I mean, ideally that's nice, right? But you need to have that lawyer that knows a lawyer, right? Because that's how you get on the dockets and all those other things. We all think that justice is this like quickie, expedited thing, but this happened 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Oh, it was a 2020 raid. Yeah. So like a DEA raid really shouldn't happen after the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment, unless they did an evidentiary hearing in front of a judge who then gave them the right to go do it.
And then on top of that, though, wouldn't it, like, right away, the defense being like, once you get a good lawyer who knows what the law is, wouldn't the prosecution, is it just taking so long to be seen in court? Can't the court just say, this is some bullshit because this is a good... No.
No, that's not the proper procedure. And so the court is going to do the proper procedure. Proper procedure does take some time. It doesn't take an extensive amount of time, especially in federal court, but then it does take time so that the due process can be done. So that they need the opportunity to respond. They need to be able to review the article, the cases that are cited or the laws that are cited, argue them, and then get an opinion from a judge. And so all that stuff takes months.
Yeah. That's poo-poo.
It is not. It is a legal process. Our country is blessed to be able to have it. And so there is some cool shit, though. We have a Name That Strain. This is our July 4th Name That Strain, by the way. Okie dokie, Smokey. Yeah, I right-clicked instead of regular-clicked. There it is. This is a strain. It is a zingy hybrid, and it is crossed, and I can kind of tell. Look at how dark it is.
Yeah.
That is a black cherry punch, and so that black cherry punch, you can see that darkness that comes with it. It's like a really purple, but then fuzzy silver crystal purple. And Tropicana cookies. Yep.
That looks really pretty, though.
It does.
Screen over here and the camera over here, so I'm all like.
Oh, yeah, I do that. My screen's over there, so then sometimes it does look like I'm looking at the news cutout. But anyway, that is a black cherry punch and Tropicana cookies. Who is the? Do we have a
20% THC? That's a good.
Yeah, I'm trying to see the grower, so we can see if we can say who because those are
Mobile
the parents.
J.
Mobile J.
Yeah.
Grower Mobile J.
I like this name though. It's pretty fucking dope.
It is. It's funny.
Very good. It's how you can get it across state lines sometimes.
Yeah. It's not Mickey Claus. It is not Tropicana banana. But yeah.
Let's say you're going to
the original breeder of this is California's Blockhead, who named it Blockberry, and then grower Mobile J selected a variety and named it this.
Gotcha.
Right.
Its name suggests how you can get stuff to other states on an airplane.
I don't know about that noise. It would be like super larf or crap, like the buds you should have shaved off so you didn't have them. Yeah.
That was associated with the old prison wallet.
Huh. I don't know. I don't know the etymology of this word. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a good time, but I don't see it coming in. And this one is called Super Boof. Would you believe that? Super Boof. And so, according to Leafly, Super Boof is a zingy hybrid strain crossed by Black Cherry Punch and Tropicana cookies, chunky deep green buds, and his parents would look like with silver calyxes. The effects are supposed to be relaxing and giggly, as Miggy and I were just giggling, but not because we were on Super Boof. They say that euphoric, creative, and focused. Nice. Gastrointestinal disorders, depression, fibromyalgia. It's high in myrcene, so it's a little earthy, and it has THC that can get up to 28%. That is Super Boof.
Opposed to that regular boof that just goes up the butt.
I'm going to take your word on that one.
I mean, that's what the boof is. It's that boofy weed that can, gotta smuggle up the old prison wallet.
Huh. I thought it was just shit.
Well, for good reason.
And that's why they call it shit back in the day. Because it was.
Oh, shit. God, I love leaving.
Man, we got some bad news out of Jersey, though. According to the Associated Press, which is still a thing.
Right?
Yeah. Jersey shore towns say state's marijuana law handcuffs police and emboldens rowdy teens. Okay. And so that's a headline. It's summertime on Jersey Shore. Yikes. And so they are not happy that that teenagers appear to be running amok on beaches and boardwalks.
It's dumb. This is the dumb, I lived in Jersey. I did high school in Jersey, in this area in particular. Mm-hmm. And the drinking and shenanigans that happen alone before legal weed, this is nothing special. Like when people complaining about homelessness and other things that happen every day in America.
You think that there's actually editorial reply seeped into the text of this article. You know, they're trying to say like teenagers bad,
Right?
they drink too much, and they smoke weed, and gosh darn it, we can't control them no more.
Well, New Jersey's also notorious for like conservative people in charge of like local like provinces or whatever you want to call them, townships. And
Well, this is Ocean City.
Yeah.
Enough is enough, says Ocean City Mayor Jay Gillian. And he wrote a message to residents on the city's website. It's becoming clear that over the past 2 summers, these crowds will only grow larger and unrulier unless something changes.
That's so dumb, dude. You know how many times I threw up in Ocean City? I'm just saying, from drinking too much. Like,
well, let's say, hang on. They do have some accusations over the Memorial Day holiday. Teens purportedly hanging from motel balcony in Seaside Heights and climbing onto the roof of another motel. In Ocean City, 8 teens drank themselves unconscious on the boardwalk, having to be hospitalized. Restroom attendants, they still have those, were assaulted and spit on by youths. And several teens were carrying knives. And one had a replica gun that police said looked just like the real thing. So, those punk teens.
So spring break is what you're telling me, man. I'm telling you, man, I got jumped in Ocean City when I was on acid. Like, we were all like walking on the boardwalk, and you're enjoying the moment, and then all of a sudden these other guys on something else came at us, and it almost became a thing. But then like you start like going all like screaming a little loud, trying to get attention, so you don't have to get into a fight. And they eventually got warded off because cops did show up, and that was kind of interesting to talk to them while you're tripping on acid. But
hang on, we have some more like inflammatory quotes.
Go for it.
And so this inflammatory quote comes from Holly Kisby, an Ocean City resident who has worked on the boardwalk for over 30 years, by the way. And she says, "You're getting well more than 300 kids. If I had to guess, 700 plus a few nights, all acting wild. It's like a bad house party without the house. This is by far the worst it's ever been." Wow. Powerful words.
But it's like they've never been kids in that area. That's like, it's so weird that you have people who like, they're getting out of hand. This is you're a freaking beach.
You know,
town.
pretty soon this is going to be like a Patrick Swayze's movie in there. It's going to be Roadhouse or like Dirty Dancing or Footloose. God forbid it'll turn into Footloose. Yeah.
Well, and then in Ocean City, in this area in particular, there's a route you can take that you'll go through all the beach towns.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they specifically orient this whole area to party. So like it's I think it is just a fear mongering from the locals, right? It's just more like somebody in AP was like, "Ooh, I can write a story about like how the old people don't forget what it's like to be young."
Somebody, that's their editorial reply. That's like that is their agenda that they believe, and they have a press, and they're going to use it to spread their political message.
Yeah. I'm telling you though, jumping out of windows in hotels there is nothing new. 30 years ago, I was no guys that did that shit.
Let me tell you about something new, though. We do got something new out of Minnesota.
Oh,
Minnesota
yes.
News. Taste of Minnesota will allow on-site consumption of THC beverages. This is coming out of Axios, the Twin Cities, on June 28th. Taste of Minnesota returns this weekend. That is right now, by the way. So if you're in Minnesota, tasty. Visitors will be able to purchase and drink low-dose hemp-derived THC beverages without leaving the festival grounds.
Welcome to 2023.
In Minnesota, with more than 100,000 expected visitors. The high-profile gathering will be the largest event in Minneapolis to explicitly allow on-site consumption of the popular products, reaffirming the drink's growing role in the Twin Cities beverage space. That is amazing. Taste partnered with Surly Brewing to make a 2.5 milligram drink named Just Taste, geared toward curious visitors wanting to try a low-dose beverage. Co-organizer Taylor Kargik told Axios, and so that means that a 2.5 milligram beverage, by the way, the average beverage, I was drinking one, it's called a Coca-Cola. Now, this one has 0 sugar, but it does still have 355 milligrams, and so that would equate to approximately 355 grams. And so that would mean, if you're going to be hemp compliant, where is 0.3% of that? And so you have 355, and then you would multiply that by 0.003, and then you get a number.
Well, these guys are really doing a workaround on it though, because they're taking the hemp that's already COA approved and good to go, and they're turning it to the Delta 9. So it's not like post testing. right? It's all about like, I illegally acquired this, I illegally did the grow, I illegally did everything. Now let me just turn it to the thing that I'm not supposed to grow, which I feel kind of sad. Like, I'm glad that they're doing this. This is great that they're, the city council's behind all this and all the other stuff. But come on, just let them use the real stuff. Let them just not go through the hoops.
Okay, and for those of you doing the math at home, if you want to see what hemp compliant would be if it was a 12 ounce beverage of 355 milliliters, that would be 1 gram. 1,000 milligrams of THC, and according to the math, if it is 12 ounces, and it's 12 ounces, so how much of that in 355 grams be 1 gram? And you would be at 0.03% THC. I'm sorry, yes, THC, so it is legally hemp. But this one's just 2.5 milligrams.
Yeah, but they're turning it to Delta 9, though.
It's like super hemp, but it doesn't matter. And so it's like on a dry weight basis. And so it's diffused in that whole 12 ounces. So it's like very, very much hemp. Anybody, in theory, can make this and ship it wherever.
Any of it you can when you derive it from Delta hemp, right? Couldn't you just because I mean, they're doing that.
Provided that it's hemp, it's hemp. And so you can't have a Coke-sized product with more than 1 gram of THC in it. Otherwise, it ain't hemp. But who the heck wants a gram of THC? Not even 100 milligram soda, like a gram soda. Nobody wants a gram soda. A 2.5 milligram soda? Yes, I could probably have 4 of those and get a good buzz over the space of many hours, and it'd be safer than 4 beers.
Yeah, 100%. And then also, how is the infused, right, with a nano emulsion or whatever? But got a comment there, RK Brooks, saying they're wrong in saying that their parents, that there is no difference between cannabis and hemp except for the 0.3%. No, you're right. The 0.03% is just an arbitrary number that the government decided to say, here's the fun plant, here's the non-fun plant.
You have to have 99.7% not that fun plant. Okay, Mr. Man, who doesn't understand that the fun plant does not grow the thing that gets you high. Idiots. And
not just that, but we can take the non-fun plant, stress it with some other stuff, and that way you just turn it into the thing that wasn't supposed to grow in the first place. Like, it makes no sense that they have to run these hurdles to have something that can be organically produced from an original plant, right? Like, why do I have to involve so many processes when a simple rosin press would be suitable enough or whatever?
I don't know. I really don't. But we do have some stocks to report in the news this week. Shout out to the Green Market Report. We have a couple of stories from them. If you haven't checked out the Green Market Report, and, my bad, you're into cannabis business and stocks, you should. So, TerraSend in Pennsylvania subsidiary has paid down $37 million in its loans. This is one of the things that cannabis companies do. They pay off their debts, just like you do, and then they use that to roll it. But if you are a cannabis company looking for debt, here is a loan that is for a publicly traded company, and it was at a 12.875% interest rate. So there you go. That is about 4-ish, a little bit more than 4.5 points over prime, because I think prime right now is about 8.25%. This is the old bank lawyer in me, but I like banking. I'm sorry.
It's a crazy large
out sometime.
A lot of numbers are cool, but holy crap, they still have a balance of 78 million though.
Yeah, but they're moving the product. And so, in a limited market state, in a publicly traded company, is it publicly traded? Yeah, it is. It's listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Cool. TER is its ticker. So there you go. It's a real industry, and you have real debts, and you pay them off. But that is an example of a limited market state, so they have the ability from their cash flows to be able to pay off their debt and move it into future debt. But not everything works out that well.
I mean, that's how business is. The whole, even payrolls are most of the time paid off from loans anyways. So
they can be, depending on what your cash flow position looks like. And speaking of that, there's some more. This has to do with why it's so difficult to scale in this industry. Also from the Green Market Report, Cresco Labs and Columbia Care struggle to secure approval for their deal.
Yeah.
They have missed their deadline that was just this past week, June 30th. That was a deadline that was sent from their final version of their merger documents, and so now they've missed it.
That's crazy that these guys are so large. So, what was the? It was just because they missed the paperwork then?
It's because of how regulatory the industry is in the states where they're at, and it moves at regulation speed. So your deadlines that you put on your documents for when it's supposed to close may get pushed back for reasons beyond your control, and so there's some of that. And then they have license limits in what per every particular state, and so this is a huge merger, so you're over the line, and so you have to divest your licenses of that as well, which just kind of goes to show why the compliance costs in the industry are so high that a company like Cresco and Columbia Care, if you put them together, they lost over $300 million last year. Now, granted, they may have sold more than $1.5 billion of weed, but it cost them $1.8 billion to sell that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to think about, like, these fact that you would try to join another cannabis company with whatever intention, but then realize all the individual little state rules. So you really just can't blatantly merge and absorb each other. Wow.
Right.
So,
yep, and that is some of the problems. And then, so in states like Florida, where if you can get in and you can just keep opening shops, great. In states like Illinois, you're going to see a lot of shelf space agreements and like IP agreements.
Sure.
I don't think those count toward your numbers. So that might be going on right now with their divestitures. I don't know. I am not their lawyer, and I probably never will be because they're expensive.
But that's really easy and sexy talk about the cannabis business and regulation, right? Like, you're talking about intellectual property, securing fundraising, right? Like, a lot of times I was thinking like how, like, cartels, like thinking about this guy that went across state lines with his own pound and got arrested, whatever, and they didn't bust El Chapo, they busted somebody who's working in an illegal state. But for those people who do like push pounds like illegally, I always think it's funny because you need a financer. You need some sort of person to buy, say, 100 pounds first, and then you're going to need all the little people, the salesmen, right? So it's funny how there is like the traditional market business model, but then you add taxes to that and the rules and regulations to it. It's not as fun. It's not as lucrative as you want it to be.
Nope. Yeah. Sure ain't. But you know what might save their ass? And Green Thumb is actually, these guys are one of the only, if not the only, publicly traded company that actually turned a profit last year, Green Thumb Industries.
Yeah.
Their CEO is upbeat that Florida will okay the Circle K medical cannabis deal. That's right. I haven't done this since I was at Michigan, because in Michigan you can go get gas and get gas. It takes gas station to a whole new meaning. And like right next to the gas station was like the Burger King that's usually inside the gas station. So I'm like, oh, well, I really wouldn't care if the pot dispensary was at the Burger King or right there. So my point is, if you're opening a dispensary, try to put it in proximity with a gas station.
Location.
No, there's a reason. There's a damn good reason why Green Thumb Industries is doing just that in Florida.
Well, yeah.
Money.
Sure.
Money.
But isn't that like with any product, right? Like a lot of times, like here in Washington, I know a lot of people who, let's say crafts, like make soaps and do things like that, right? The ideal is to get a goddamn contract with Target or Walmart, and then that's where you can like have that nice little fun money. Not going to markets on Sundays and selling it at the farmers markets. No, you want a contract with Target, and that's kind of the same thing, right? With Circle K. Did you get in your pre-rolls in Circle K or whatever?
Not just that. You have to understand how people buy stuff. And so you have to look at traffic patterns to determine there's basket size and numbers of baskets a day. And so when you're looking at numbers of baskets a day, that's the gas station play right there. But we got some international news. This was a very interesting, story. So let's hit that. High Times is reporting that Vladimir Zelensky has told the Ukrainian parliament they must finally legalize cannabis-based medicines for all who need them because of the trauma of war that is going on in Ukraine.
Wow.
Their president, Zelensky, is calling on lawmakers to legalize medical cannabis to provide relief to those in his country suffering from the trauma of war.
That'll be amazing if they create like an infrastructure, just medical. Because I mean, it'll eventually lead to recreational one day, but it starts off.
But this is just—it's a no nonsense. Just makes sense. A sensible approach to helping his people through an extremely hard time.
Well, imagine the whole country has PTSD, right?
Oh,
like
yes.
even I didn't even be a soldier, but just living there. So
Right. And then the appropriate scientific research and controlled Ukrainian production. So even in Ukraine, and like every state where you make the weed is where it's supposed to be sold, including if you go to Europe. But they do have a terrible stat here. As many as 354,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers have been killed or injured in this war that is about a year and a half old now.
yeah. No, I watched a thing about soldiers getting limbs and stuff just this morning, actually. So, I mean, again, we all know cannabis is not just a physical medicine, but a mental medicine that can help all kinds of ailments and people get over things, you know?
Right. Well, that's just a really important international news development that I thought.
Yes.
And then I saw this one, and I'm like, well, 2 steps forward, 1 step backward.
Right.
This one's interesting in the sense that Ganjapreneur, they are reporting that the only licensed hemp farm in the British Isles has been shut down after the UK government finds THC in its products and said that they were over the line.
That's just shitty policy. Like,
Jersey Hemp, the only farm in the British Isles licensed to grow hemp and manufacture CBD products, shut down operations after the UK said that it found THCs in the company's CBD exported and declared the products illegal.
do you know if the line in Europe the same as the United States, 0.03?
I do not know exactly, but it's probably similar. If it's not 0.03, maybe it's 0.1, maybe it's 1%. But this one just says CBD. You know, the only licensed farm in the British Isles to cultivate hemp has been shut down. Let's see, the BBC is reporting. Maybe here it is from 3 days ago, according to the BBC.com. Maybe they have it here. Let's see, 1978 shipment, THC. I don't see any percentage on it. But if you want to create a free BBC account, you can.
But it's just sad, though. They would just go straight to the criminalization and shutting down, opposed to the
Remediation?
yeah, right. I mean, that's the whole purpose of legalization, right? What happens if an alcohol company has too high of ABV? Is that even a thing?
I don't
Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. Well, I mean, like we've talked about many silly loopholes in hemp, like with Cookies having their online store that's selling THCA flower directly to consumers, to the thing that's happening in Minnesota. But it is a highly politicized, silly industry.
That's true. That's true. We got some shit
yeah. Let's do some shit I wasn't expecting. House Republicans out of North Carolina. Go for it, Mickey.
Appalled by North Carolina's attempt to force a vote on medical marijuana. Appalled. How are you not expecting the Republicans to be mad about that?
Well, this is an interesting story. The Senate. So this is like the House Republican is appalled by the NC Senate's attempt to force a vote on medical marijuana. The Senate already passed the medical marijuana out of North Kakalaka. It got stalled in the House, and so now the Senate's like, and doing a maneuver, a legislative maneuver. And then it made this man, Republican Mike Clampett, smile. Well, actually, this is a file photo from September 8th, 2021, and he's wearing a bow tie. That's probably why he's smiling.
So, to see, he's not going to help their cause and trying to get it passed. They want to play games. I don't get, after a few brief speeches, Democrat Senator Mike Woodward, who called the move his favorite amendment of the whole session, prompting laughs from the rest of the chamber. The Senate approved Robbins' amendment 36-8. So that's a huge approval. So,
Right. Like,
Bipartisan.
well, the Senate has already voted on it, and so now and then what happened was the Senate passed theirs, which was SB 3, and then the House passed theirs, HB 75, and so it just says HB 75 will go into effect if and when Senate Bill 3 becomes law. So we'll vote for your bill if you vote for ours, bro.
So they're gonna merge then, right? Don't they have to reconcile now?
No, like. This one will become law if yours becomes law. Like, you just pass ours, we'll pass yours. Yes, we are in agreement. You vote for it first.
It's like two stoners just go.
Wait a second, guys. I know what we'll do. This one, they'll never see this one coming. We'll just say that we already legalized it, and so we sent it to you, and you sent us back a whole different bill.
It's on their desk.
We will pass that once you pass ours. Pass ours, we pass yours. Scratching backs right here. Come on, let's go.
Seriously.
North Carolina style.
Could the governor though take those two bills and amend them, or no? They have to go through the process.
No,
itself.
but they would both be effective. You see, because both of them match, and so like they patched HB and then they passed SB. So 75 passed, 3 passed. They both passed,
Makes no
and so
fucking
it would
sense.
just. Yes, I know it doesn't make any sense. That's correct. You know, and I believe that's our show. I mean, with some hilarious North Carolina news, that's our show for the week. I want to wish everybody who tuned in a very happy 4th of July. Are you going to blow some stuff up, or at least watch things blow up?
Oh yeah. There's fireworks shows out here, and we also can buy fireworks and blow them up in certain spots. So.
Nice. And then I will be in Baltimore at the end of this month. I will be at Baltimore in 19 days and 23 hours. Come check us out in Baltimore because it is cannabis licensing season coming to the East Coast in Maryland now that it has been legalized. Check us out at the Lucky Leaf Festival. I am going to be giving people a coupon code right there. That is not it, by the way. And so I will first send this one from the Lucky Leaf Expo to people so they can check that out. And then there is a coupon code that they were kind enough to give us, which is Collateral 25. Nice. And so Collateral 25, back to Lucky Leaf Expo, and back to the people. That is just a V as opposed to a Apple V. Awesome. Miggy, do you have anything else to share with the audience before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I contacted all my beaners. I'll probably do another video tonight or tomorrow. I'll do the announcement of like who I sent beans to, and then see you guys next Sunday. And really, thanks for hanging out with us. It's been a pleasure. And until next time, smoke when we got.
Until next time, we'll see you when it's 420 somewhere.